This ball is crushed.
You're listening to the New York Yankees Recaps podcast, where we're talking New York Yankees baseball all season long. Recaps of big games, the best home run calls, trades, rumors, and what's happening down on the farm. Every game, all season long.
How is it going, everybody? Welcome back to the New York Yankees Recaps podcast. I am your host, Derek Lewandowski. So spring training is in full swing, and unfortunately the injuries are also in full swing. I'll get back to that in a minute. The Yankees beat the Red Sox yesterday by a score of 9-1. It's always fun to beat the Red Sox, spring or not. There's just something about the team and their fan base that makes me want the Yankees to stomp them into the ground at every opportunity, even if it's spring and doesn't mean anything. The Sox should be weaker this year. They lost their manager to the cheating scandal. They lost Mookie Betts via trade for some prospects. And no matter how good these prospects are, they're not going to be Mookie Betts. Let's be clear about that. Jeter Downs, named after Derek Jeter, was the main piece in the trade. He's a shortstop, but he's not Mookie Betts. They also lost David Price, who I know that the Yankees kill him, but he's a pretty decent pitcher still. I mean, he's pretty consistent, throws a lot of innings, and helped them win a World Series a couple years ago. MLB is still looking into the Red Sox cheating scandal, the one that cost Alex Cora his job. Actually, he was associated with the Astros cheating scandal too, but apparently the Red Sox are mixed up in this as well. We have not gotten information yet on exactly how deep it went or what exactly the Red Sox were doing in 2018, but there is a chance that the Red Sox could be penalized even worse than the Astros. We don't know yet. Fans are going to be rough on the Red Sox if it turns out that they cheated on the level that the Astros did. The Yankee fans are already rough on the Red Sox, but imagine what it's going to be like if it turns out that the Red Sox are as guilty as the Astros. It's going to be a nightmare for them to come to the Bronx. You're going to have to bring out SWAT teams and riot control. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get really ugly when the Astros come too, but if the Red Sox are caught up in this, as I think they are, it's going to be ugly. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about on today's podcast was my thoughts on the new pitching coach, Matt Blake, whom the Yankees hired from Cleveland this winter. And Cleveland was kind of a powerhouse in developing pitching over the last decade or so. Guys like Carlos Carrasco, Adam Plutko, Zach Plesac, Aaron Savale. These are all guys, Clevenger, Shane Bieber, these are all guys that the Indians have brought up through their system that are going to make an impact on the Major League roster. And the Yankees, of course, have not been great at developing homegrown pitching talent outside of relievers. Brian Cashman seems to have a knack for developing relief pitching. So they brought in Matt Blake to be the pitching coach. And there's an article in the New York Post from November 9th, 2019, right after the Yankees acquired Matt Blake. And Matt Blake had just been named the Indians pitching coordinator 2 days prior, before the Yankees hired him. Actually, he was the pitching director. So the Yankees hired him to bring in some of the new analytical approach to pitching that has been going around the league. He's known as something of a pitching guru. He began with Holy Cross and then was a regional high school pitching coach not too long ago before joining the Indians. So his career has had kind of a meteoric rise in recent years. And he works a lot with Eric Cressey, who runs Cressey Sports Performance and was recently hired by the Yankees to be the lead, strength and conditioning program coach. I don't think he's an on-field coach, but he's kind of leading the entire program. So you got to think that Matt Blake was partially responsible for Eric Cressey ending up with the Yankees. So Matt Blake was a guy who was heavily involved in Driveline. Now, if you're not familiar with Driveline, they are kind of a pitching factory. They use super high resolution cameras to study how pitchers release the ball, how the spin rate affects the shape of the pitch. They are somebody that transformed Trevor Bauer from a prospect who couldn't really make it into a guy who at one point had a 2.25 or 2.35 ERA in the major leagues. The number escapes me, but he had a very good year a couple years ago. Wasn't as good this year, but bringing in these Driveline coaches, these guys who understand analytically what makes pitches difficult to recognize, difficult to hit, and how to optimize a pitcher's arsenal to miss bats. I think this is really going to help the Yankees, and I'm a big fan of what they did bringing in these new age guys. I think that that's going to give them a leg up. It's going to, at least put them on the level with the Astros in terms of developing pitchers or maximizing a pitcher's repertoire. One thing that was interesting was that Garrett Cole, on meeting Matt Blake, asked him if he'd ever made a mound visit, because this is his first time coaching at the big league level. I mean, he's been involved in developing pitchers, and his strength seems to be communicating complex analytical ideas to pitchers. He's a good communicator. He understands analytics. He understands pitch development, pitch creation, and it's just a matter of communicating that to the athletes who actually have to do the pitching. So that is something that he specializes in, and I guess Garrett Cole was concerned that he had never been part of a major league pitching staff to where, if somebody's struggling, can he go out to the mound and tell them how to fix it? Something that Rothschild admittedly was pretty good at, but Rothschild was not as good at developing pitching analytically, right? He's an old school guy. He's not a guy that's going to, help you design pitch sequences and things like that. So I think that they're going in the right direction by bringing in Matt Blake. It'll be interesting to see how he does. It's too early in spring to really know what his impact has been. However, I have seen a few things that are encouraging. Masahiro Tanaka seems to have developed a few different shapes to his pitches, so that he has other places to go other than the splitter. He's working with Matt Blake on developing a cutter. He's also worked with Andy Pettitte on the cutter. So that's good. One other thing to note about the Yankees pitching, one of their top prospects is a guy named Clark Schmidt. I've mentioned him in the past. He was the Yankees' first-round draft pick in 2017, I believe, when they lost in the American League Championship Series, Game 7. Magical year, but they drafted him shortly after he had had Tommy John surgery. And, he's just working his way back. He is considered a top prospect. He's very polished. And Garrett Cole, already showing leadership, has taken Clark Schmidt under his wing. He's teaching him how to be a better pitcher. He's teaching him, where you want to miss with your breaking ball, where you want to throw your fastball, how you want to use the hitter's strengths and weaknesses against them. So it's great to hear that Garrett Cole is, involved so much as a clubhouse leader, especially on the pitching staff so early. If he can help develop some of these guys like Davy Garcia and Clark Schmidt, maybe even Michael King, help them to become better pitchers, it really could be a huge boost to this Yankees staff, because the Yankees have the arms. They have plenty of guys throwing mid-90s with good hooks. It's just a matter of putting it all together and learning to be big league pitchers. And one thing about these analytics is that it's helping pitchers to develop into better pitchers much more quickly. If you go back and look at Domingo Germán, he was never considered a huge prospect, but the Yankees recognized the spin rate on his fastball, the spin rate on his curveball, the amount of break he gets on his curveball, his changeup, and they were able to utilize those assets to develop him into an 18-game winner last year. He was 18-4. I know that we don't care too much about wins these days, but if you win 18 games, you had a pretty good year. His ERA was over 4 because he had a couple of clunkers, But for a while, he looked like an all-star starter. He was that good in the beginning of the season. It wasn't until the end of the season when he started to wear down that, things really fell apart. And Domingo Germán is suspended until, I think, June or July because of the domestic violence policy. Nobody really knows what he did. It hasn't gotten out there, but he did go to rehab to try and, get a handle on his emotions and things like that. So hopefully he comes back strong, and he's been posting on Instagram. He is not in spring training with the team. He's working out on his own. So you got to imagine it was pretty bad, whatever he did. Let's hope that he learns from it and gets better, and that when he comes back, the Yankees can utilize him in a successful way. So that's all I have to say on Matt Blake and the Yankees pitching staff. So let's get back into the injury bug updates. I talked about this on the last couple of podcasts. It seems like every podcast I have new injuries to update. Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton are going to miss opening day. That sucks. Aaron Judge has a problem in his pectoral and shoulder region that they're trying to identify. They don't know exactly what it is. They've performed MRIs. They've performed a number of tests. They've all come back negative. So that makes me wonder if there's something very tiny that is nearly undetectable that is causing pain. Hopefully they can get it under control. Brian Cashman yesterday on the telecast said that he was responding well to treatment, whatever that means. They're doing manual treatment. I guess it's massages and things like that to try and work out the kinks. The human body's a mystery, man, and these guys are athletes and they're pushing their bodies to the limits. So it's only a matter of time before things break. The question is, how well can you prevent things from breaking, and how quickly can you get somebody back on the field when things ultimately do break? So last year it was a problem. Guys would have minor injuries that would turn into major injuries during their rehab. Luis Severino comes to mind. Dellin Betances comes to mind. Eventually they launched the training staff into the sun and hired Eric Cressey to hopefully change the way that rehab is performed to limit some of these long-term injuries. But Giancarlo Stanton also dealing with a calf issue, and calf issues can be trouble because you use them all the time. You have to walk. It almost makes you wonder if they should put these guys in a wheelchair for a bit when they have a calf injury. Just sit in a wheelchair, let it rest, do some stretching, sit in a jacuzzi, get massages, get some anti-inflammatories, things like that. But I'm worried about Giancarlo Stanton because he seems to be one of these guys that gets injury after injury after injury, and that's not uncommon with very muscle-bound players. Guys like Mark McGwire, if you remember, now he was a steroid case, but so is Jose Canseco. But when guys have injuries that break them down, Juan Gonzalez also comes to mind. It can trigger other systems to fail. So I'm a bit worried about Giancarlo Stanton, that he's just going to be one of these injury-prone guys because he signed for another 9 years at over $20 million a year. However, there is a bit of silver lining. This opens up a spot for Clint Frazier, who has been outstanding this spring. He's made some tweaks to his batting stance. He's turning his front leg, his left leg, in a little bit more, kind of turning that knee back towards the catcher a bit, which takes away a bit of time that he needs to load when a pitch is coming in, which allows him to see the ball sooner, judge it better through the strike zone. And you could tell yesterday, watching the game, that he had some great at-bats. He was taking pitches. He looked very comfortable in the box. So Clint Frazier, I think, is going to have a really nice start, as long as he can stay healthy too. He's been lucky enough not to have too many injury problems outside of the concussion, but I was really impressed with the way that he's swinging the bat, tracking the ball, and all reports say that he has made some adjustments to the way his feet are set up in the outfield so that he can be a better defender as well. So looking forward to see what Clint Frazier can do. They do start off the season in Baltimore, and Baltimore is known to serve up long balls to the Yankees. Look for Gleyber Torres and Gary Sanchez both to get off to a good start. If you got DraftKings or any of those things, and you want to put them into your lineup, that would not be a bad idea. I've played DraftKings a few times. I've never had a ton of luck. I usually don't like to gamble, But every once in a while, if I feel strongly about a matchup, what I'll do is I'll take like $5 and enter in one of those daily contests. And if my team does well and I win a bit of money, I'll let it ride. I'll invest it into other games and things like that. And I think last year I won like $23 over the course of the season. So, it's something to just keep you busy, something to, try out once in a while, but not something that you want to get addicted to because you can lose money on DraftKings. There are people who do this professionally, who study analytics and numbers and have spreadsheets and all this stuff and all this data to tell them, who's going to win and who's going to play well and things like that. And so DraftKings, it's not rigged, but it's very tough to win. More injury news. Luke Voit coming back from off-season surgery on his hernia. There was an article today in The Athletic, and if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, it's definitely worth doing because there are a ton of good articles, and Lindsay Adler is the main beat writer for the Yankees on The Athletic, and she's terrific. She posted an article a few weeks ago maybe it was a few days ago actually, about the Yankees' internal Madden 2020 video game league, which was a fun read. And she had an article this morning, a few hours ago, about Luke Voit and how he tore everything last year and tried to play through it. And the damage was much more extensive than they thought. When they opened it up and they actually saw, how much he had torn, the doctors were blown away. But he had everything repaired. He looks fit. He says that he's feeling good. And so far in camp, he hasn't done a ton statistically, but that's not a big deal. But he looks good. I was watching his swings. It started off the first couple of days a little bit slow. He looked like he was really getting jammed on pitches a lot. But yesterday he had a couple of good swings, and he's hit the ball hard a few times. I like Luke Voit because, he takes pitches, he works the count, he doesn't swing at sliders in the dirt, he knows what he can hit, he knows what he can do damage on, and he tries to hit those pitches, which is why I think he'll be successful. Mike Ford also swinging the bat well. There are probably at-bats out there for him this spring as well with all the injuries. I could see a scenario where you got Mike Ford at DH, you got Andujar in left field, and you got Clint Frazier in right field, and then either Tauchman or Gardner in center field, some combination of rotating those players to get everybody at bats. So, Mike Ford at DH and Voit at first base, or you can flip-flop it and get everybody at bats. So I think you're going to see a lot of guys get at bats depending on the matchups and, what the Yankees feel analytically is the best lineup to put runs on the board. So, I think Luke Voit has a big year ahead of him. And so could Mike Ford. I mean, if he gets a lot of at-bats, he's got a great swing. So we'll see. One thing I like about Mike Ford is that he uses the whole field, which is not always the case with left-handers, especially left-handers in Yankee Stadium. That right field short porch is very alluring. If you're standing in that box and you can reach it, it's very easy to get pull happy and try and get in front of a pitch and hook it down that right field line. But he's not afraid to take a pitch that's on the outer half and slap it to left field or drive it in the left center field gap, something we saw him do a lot last year. He had a 909 OPS, which is tremendous, especially for a rookie. So, granted, it was a limited amount of time, but he played in like 50 games or something like that, so it wasn't that limited amount of time, and he's got a nice track record in the minor leagues of hitting, so I think Mike Ford could be the real deal. We'll see. Gio Urshela hit a long home run yesterday. He's looked very good at the plate, so has Miguel Andujar. Andujar I was a bit worried about because of the labrum surgery. When he came back, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be the same hitter that he was before he went down. If you remember, Greg Bird had a similar surgery, and when he came back, his exit velocity dropped by over 8 miles an hour. He got a job this year with the Texas Rangers. He's fighting for the starting first base job. Looks like he's hitting the ball pretty well if he can stay healthy. He played in the Dominican Winter League. I wish the best of luck to Greg Bird. I think he's a good hitter. I just think he needs to stay healthy. Some guys just can't stay healthy. I mean, it's a skill. Staying on the field is a skill. One other thing I wanted to talk about was how good Tyler Wade looks this spring. Now, Tyler Wade has a history of doing well in spring. I remember that there were 2 cases in which he thought he was going to make the team and was sent down at the last moment to work on either his defense or his hitting. But last year, during the latter half of the season, he got a lot more playing time. He was moved around the outfield, the infield. He's got some versatility. He's got some speed. And he finally did a little bit of hitting at the big league level. I mean, not a tremendous amount, but he wasn't hitting 150 either. I mean, he was making some solid contact. He had a couple of extra base hits. He had a home run. So Tyler Wade could be a guy that makes an impact, and he's looked good this spring. His swing looks good. He looks like he's bulked up a little bit. He's stronger. So watch out for Tyler Wade. He could be a sleeper pick for your fantasy draft. So that's it for me. I will see you next time. I've got a game recap tomorrow, so tune in for that. And during the season, I'm going to try and do one every single game. There are times when I have to work or, West Coast, it's going to be tough, but I'll try and do one for every game and release them either the day of the game or the morning after. So stay tuned. I'll see you next time.